こちらください。お願いします。こちらお願いします。こちら真ん中お願いします。
いろいろいただきいいですか。すいません。
こちらも普通ですか。すみません。はい。お願いします。こちらお願いします。こちらお願いします。
後ろのテレビの方いかがですか。目線入れていただいたら皆さん大丈夫ですかね。
こちらお願いします。最後左の最後にお願いします。
右の方たちどうでしょう。このままもう始めてしまって大丈夫ですか。大丈夫です。
最後こちら
皆さん大丈夫ですね。この方。
ありがとうございます。
はい。
すみません。最後にこちらちょっとお願いできますか。はい、お願いします。では
はい、
私の方にちょっとお願いし
下がってくだ
ます。
さい。はい、下がってください。次の方たちそれ以上前でないような気をつけになってください。
Good morning, everybody. Actually, it's not morning. Sorry, it's afternoon. My mistake. My name is David McNeil. I'm a member of the events committee of this club. Johnny and Associates has definitely won the battle of the weather. Yesterday, they had far better weather for their press conference, so thank you, everybody, for turning up in such large numbers. Most of you, I'm sure, in the room will have seen yesterday's press conference where Julie Fujishima, the president of Johnny and Associates, resigned after a dam break of revelations about predatory sexual abuse by the talent agency's founder and her uncle, Johnny Kitagawa. A special investigative panel in August concluded that Kitagawa-san had started molesting boys at the agency as early as the 1960s, possibly the 50s, and said the company's family management was a key reason why the abuse was allowed to continue for so long. Now, if one person can take credit for starting this whole investigation and where we are now, it's the man sitting here at the table beside me, Kawan Okamoto. In April, he challenged the silence on claims of abuse when he told this club, the FCCJ, that he had been the target of repeated and unwanted sexual attention by Kitagawa from 2012 until he left 4 years later. Like so many others, Okamoto-san said that his initiation began in Kitagawa's penthouse apartment and was seen as the unspoken price that boys at the agency paid for stardom. After months of tumultuous developments, Okamoto-san has agreed to return to the FCCJ today and give his assessment of where we are now. Has the investigation essentially put a lid on this whole scandal, the lid, of course, that Okamoto-san lifted way back in the spring. So please, he's going to read a statement. Please give him the best of your attention. As I always do at these press conferences, can I just appeal for respect for the subject, which is a very serious subject. Our translator, interpreter today, sorry, is Mary Joyce. Yoroshiku onegaishimasu.
Hello, everyone. Thank you all for being here. This is Kawan Okamoto. Today I'm here to make a speech in response to yesterday's press conference held by Johnny and Associates. I appreciate your attention on this matter. 皆さん、本日お忙しい中集まりいただきましてありがとうございます。昨日、ジャニーズ事務所が会見を行いました。ジャニーズ事務所の性加害問題については、僕がここで行った会見によって、世の中の注目を招いたこともあり、事務所の会見後、なるべく早いタイミングで、僕の気持ちをお話しし、僕自身も次のステップに進みたいと思っておりました。そこで、今日このような場を設けさせていただきました。
Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining or being here today. Yesterday, Johnny and Associates held a press conference And regarding the issue of the sexual abuse-related issues of the company, I wanted to give my own press conference as soon as possible after that as well, which is why I'm taking the opportunity to have this press conference today. Further, I wanted to do this also because I myself want to progress to the next step, so this is why I have this opportunity with you.
振り返れば4月12日にまさにこの場所で僕が過去に体験したことを率直にお話ししました。その時点では正直言えばここまで社会に衝撃を与える大きな出来事になるということは想像できませんでした。そもそもあの時の僕にはそういう問題にまで発展させようという意識はありませんでした。
Looking back at the time on April 12, when I held the press conference at this very same place as today, and spoke frankly about what I had experienced in the past. To be honest, at that time, I had no idea that this would develop or expand into such a major event which would have such an impact on the broader society, nor did I have any deliberate intention to develop it into such an issue at that time in the first place.
内容としてはセンシティブな話ですから、顔を出してそれを打ち明けることで、その後何が起きるかについて予想していないわけではありませんでしたが、ただあの時の僕は恨みを晴らすとか同情されたいとかそんな気持ちがあったのではなく、自分に嘘をついて生きていくのはもう嫌だと、あの状況に置かれていた自分が体験したことについてありのままをストレートにお話しすることで自分が変われる気がしていました。
And the content was, of course, sensitive. Therefore, it is not that I had completely not imagined what would happen if I did come out, also showing my face. However, it is not that I wanted to share some kind of a grudge or to have pity. Rather, it was just that I felt that coming out and speaking frankly about what had happened to me as I was and in what position I was, it would be an opportunity for me myself to also be able to change.
公の場でああいった発言をしたことについては売名行為だとかさまざまな批判も浴びました。こういうことに対して世の中はこういうふうに反応するんだということは実体験として多く学びました。当然傷つくこともありましたし、自分一人ではとても受け止められないと精神的にかなり辛かった時もあります。
I received a lot of criticism for making such a statement in a public forum, including, for example, people saying that it was just a publicity stunt to promote myself. I learned a lot from this experience which I went through about how the world reacts to such things. There were naturally times when I was hurt and times when I felt that I could not take all of this on my own, and times where it was also psychologically extremely difficult.
かといって後悔しているかといえばそれはありません。あの時の僕は告発が正しかったかそうではなかったか僕自身に決めることはできません。その結果どんなことが起きるのかについて想像力が足りなかったことを無責任という方もいらっしゃるかもしれませんが、僕自身は真実だけを話す覚悟でいました。おそらくこれからも僕はあの会見を開いた人、性加害の被害者ということがずっとつきまとうだろうということも認識しています。
That said, as to whether I regret having done so or not, the answer is no. It is perhaps not up to me to decide whether it was right for me to have spoken out or not. But I personally felt then, and I still do, that it was right for me to speak out in public. As a result, some people say that perhaps I lacked sufficient imagination to see what might happen as a result of this, and people may call me irresponsible for this. However, I just felt certain that I should be up there or I could speak the truth. And I imagine, I understand that from now, I will also, well, I'm prepared for the fact that throughout my life, I will probably remain as the person who held that conference, as someone who was a victim of sexual abuse.
それでも自分や大切な人たちに嘘をつかずに済むようになったことは僕の人生にとってとても大きな変化となりました。
However, within that situation, the fact that I was able to be someone who goes forward speaking no lies to both myself and also to the people who are important to me was something which was a very great change in my life.
そして事務所が性加害の事実を認め謝罪をし、被害者への賠償を具体的に進めていくことが発表されたことで、僕自身心が少し楽になりました。また社長も交代し、経営体制も一新されることも発表されました。会社の規則も厳しくして世間の目にさらされていくという中、今ジャニーズ事務所に僕からこれ以上何かを言うことはもうないと思います。しかし僕を含めた被害者の方々の心の傷はそう簡単に言えることではないと心に刻んでいただきたいです。新社長の東山さんもおっしゃっていましたが、一生の命をかけてでも皆さんに向き合っていく覚悟は本当に必要だと思っています。
And now that Johnny and Associates, the agency, has recognized the facts, acknowledged the facts of the sexual abuse, made an apology, and has also said that it will proceed to concrete compensation for the victims, this is something which allows me, myself, to feel somewhat at ease. The fact that there has also been a change in the president, and it was also announced that there will be a renewal of the management structure of the agency. The fact that the society's eyes will continue to be strictly on the agency, and as it will also become stricter in regards to its rules or policies, means that for me standing here today, there is not anything more, anything further that I myself would have to say to Johnny and Associates. However, I also take very much to heart the fact that it is not an easy thing to fully heal the psychological wounds of those who were victimized, including myself. The new president, Mr. Higashiyama, said himself also, but this is something that he will spend is something that for everybody it will take an entire lifetime to continue to facing up, and I think needs to be prepared for this.
思い返すと4月12日の会見後、短い期間でさまざまなことがありました。中でも予想もしていなかったこととして、ジュリーさんに直接お会いすることができました。お会いした時の状況についてはこれまでの動画などでお話ししていますが、ジュリーさんという方に一人の人間として接することができる貴重な機会でした。そしてお会いして早々、僕が苦しい思いをしてきたことについて謝ってもいただきました。僕が経験したこと、それによって苦しんだことについて寄り添ってくれようとする気持ちは感じました。
Looking back in the short period of time since the April 12 press conference, many things have happened during this period. One of perhaps the most unexpected within this was the opportunity to meet Julie in person. As to the details of that meeting, this I have discussed in various videos and so on. However, it was a very precious opportunity to get to know Julie as a person. Quite soon after we met, she even apologized to me for the suffering that I had been through. And I felt that I could sense that she was trying in a way to be there for me and to stand by me through what I had experienced and suffered as a result.
そしてジュリーさんは僕に、今ジャニーズ事務所に所属している全タレントたちが性加害にあったからスターになれたんだと思われることや、本人たちの努力なしで活躍してこられたと思われるのが悲しいとおっしゃっていました。僕もそこに関しては同意見でした。タレントたちに罪はないです。僕が見てきたジャニーズのタレントというのは、どんな厳しい状況の中でも笑顔でステージに立ち、ファンの皆さんに夢と希望を与える存在でした。
At that time, Julie said to me that she would feel extremely sad if all of the talents who are now active and affiliated with Johnny and Associates, if it was thought that they had become stars because of the fact that they had been through this sexual abuse, or that people would think that they were not able to become stars just because of their own efforts there as well. I also feel the same in regards to this. The talents themselves, there is no fault on their side. the talents that I have seen from Johnny's through the years shows that no matter what kind of difficult circumstances they're in, they stand on the stage with a smile and do all they can to be a presence which provides dreams and hopes to all of the fans.
そして4月の会見でもお話ししましたが、僕自身はジャニーズ事務所という場についての感謝とエンターテインメントの夢を見させてくれたジャニー氏を恨みきれない思いは、世間にグルーミングと言われても今でもあります。自分自身を認めるためにも過去を全否定することはできません。これまでの数ヶ月間で同じような被害に遭われたたくさんの方々が声を上げました。その中にはこれまで苦しみを閉じ込めてきたことに対して償ってほしいという方々がたくさんいます。実際何があってそれでどう苦しんだかは人の数だけあると思いますし、それに対しての決着のつけ方もそれぞれあると思います。
I also spoke about this during the press conference in April as well, but I myself do still have gratitude towards Johnny and Associates, and also to Johnny himself, or in regards to Johnny himself, who was the person who showed me this dream of the world of entertainment. I cannot completely feel hatred towards him either. Even if people say that this is grooming, this is the feeling that I hold with me today as well. In order for me to acknowledge myself as well, then I cannot completely deny the past which I have come through as well. During the past few months, many other people who have been through similar victimization have spoken out. And within them are many people who say that they want or they seek compensation for the pain in which they have been locked. However, of course, what happened and what kind of suffering they experienced, there is as many different ways of suffering as there are people who have been through this as well. And in regards to this, also their way of finding a way to settle the matter will also be different for each of those people.
僕は日系ブラジル人の両親のもと、日本で生まれ育ちました。愛している音楽と出会い、関わる中で自分の家族やルーツを守りたいと思うようになりました。これから先、僕はもう前に進みます。今回こういう行動を取ったという過去は消えることはありませんので、その責任からは逃げずにいたいと思いますが、できるだけ未来を向きたいです。
Born to Nikkei Brazilian parents here and raised in Japan, I have lived together with the music that I love and the different encounters that I have experienced as well. And within this, I have become wanting to protect both my family and my roots as well. From now, I will continue to move forward. Of course, the fact that I have taken these actions is not something and that I have this past is not something that will disappear. And I do not want to run away from this responsibility as well. However, I want to, as much as possible, look toward the future.
このような経験をして、そのすべてをさらけ出した僕が、だからこそ見てくれている人々に勇気を与えていけると信じています。人は誰でも失敗します。もう立ち上がれないと思うようなこと、もう生きたくないと思うようなことはいっぱいあります。僕は受け入れる方の許すではなくて、施しの許すでそれらを乗り越えていけると信じています。日本、そしてブラジルを代表できるようなアーティストになって必ず帰ってきます。最後になりますが、僕がずっと抱えてきた心の苦しみに耳を傾けてくださった皆様、本当に心からありがとうございました。Muito obrigado.
The fact that, or as someone who has indeed spoke up and shared everything about the experience that I went through, I believe is something which has also been able to give courage to other people who have been watching this as well. Everybody, of course, anybody makes mistakes. There are also times when you may think it is not possible to stand up and keep going, or where you may not even want to continue living. However, when I think about forgiveness, I do not want to have a kind of forgiveness which is just accepting. Rather, I want to overcome this situation by looking at a kind of forgiving through pardoning, including those who are giving arms against this as well. I am committed, I'm certain to become an artist who can truly represent both Japan and Brazil, and I will be back. And finally, I would like to express my very deep and sincere thanks to everybody who has paid heed and listened to the different suffering that I have continued to experience. Muito obrigado.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Okay, well, it is a press conference, so I'll open it up for questions. If you would like to ask a question, can you raise your hand, please? When you come to the microphone, can you identify yourself? And can I urge no speeches, just questions, please? Onegaishimasu. This gentleman.
ではご質問の際は英語でも日本語でも大丈夫ですが、お名前と所属の方お願いします。
アークタイムズの尾形と申します。I'm Toshi Ogata with Arc Times. First, I'm going to ask in English, then I'm going to translate it into Japanese by myself. So I have two quick questions. Mr. Okamoto, you mentioned that you don't have any other things to add toward Johnny and Associates. But there has been a lot of criticism toward their press conference yesterday. They apologized, but they don't have any concrete plans, and they just said that their president will be changed. So what's your assessment on their press conference itself? I just wanted to ask about that. And quickly, secondly, I just wanted to know your studies of relation with Johnny and Associates. Are you already settled with them or in process of settled them, or you have any agreement with them to cooperate together or anything? So アークタイムズの尾形ですが、2つ質問なんですけれども、一つは、これ以上ジャニーズについて言いたいことはないということはおっしゃってて、それはよくわかるんですが、一方で昨日の記者会見ですね、社長は交代しましたけれども、具体的な話が全然なくて非常に批判もたくさん来ています。それについてはどういうふうに会見自体をどう見たのか。もう一つはジャニーズとの間でジュリー社長と会ったという話は川湾さんもジュリーさんも言ってますけれども、何かもう和解に至っているのか、和解に至るプロセスにもあるのか、もしくは何か今後協力していくという何らかの合意みたいなものがあるのか、それをお聞かせください。
まず昨日の会見を見て、先ほどもスピーチで言ったんですけど、まずその認めた、性加害を認めたということと、被害者へ補償や賠償を行っていくということが僕にとってすごい大きなものとして捉えてて、それ以外のその社長の交代だったりとか、事務所に対してこうした方がいいとか法律的にとか、正直その辺のことはまだよくわからないですが、ただそこの重要なところがクリアになったので、僕自身としては言うことはないのかなと。これで全部 OK かって言われたらそういうわけではないんですけど、ただ今後僕自身見守っていきたいなと思いますし、もちろんその補償の内容だったりとか、今後話し合っていくことがあると思うんですけど、先ほどの質問にもお答えすると、まだもちろんあちらから昨日発表されて僕も知ったんですけど、あちらからまだ何かコンタクトがあったわけではなくて、1回ジュリーさんと会った日のみなので、まだ何もお話はしていないですが、そういうことになります。はい。
First of all, as I mentioned in my speech as well in regards to the press conference that was given yesterday, the fact that first of all, Johnny & Associates acknowledged the sexual abuse, and they also stated their intention to provide compensation for the victims. These 2 points are, for me, things that I see as being very significant. There are also the other points, such as the changing of the presidency of the agency, other different recommendations and legal aspects, which were also in relation to the agency as well. Frankly, for me, these are not things which I am so certain about or have such an understanding of. But personally, as the points which are important to me were made clear in this press conference, I feel that I do not myself have anything further to add. Of course, that does not mean that everything is just okay. I want to continue to, of course, protect myself. As for the content of the compensation, this is something which I believe there will need to be a discussion from now about as well. I personally also only learned about this while I was watching the press conference yesterday. It is not that there has been any contact directly from Johnny & Associates. And also, I met Julie on that one occasion. However, there has not been any further, discussion or points as to that. So that raises the second point.
あと付け加えると、やっぱりかなり長くなると思います。この性加害のこと自体が事務所が払拭をすることや、本人たちもおっしゃっていましたが、会社をもっといい方向に生まれ直すっていうのは、僕はスピーチでも言いましたが、そう簡単なことではないと思いますし、東山さんが言っていた一生をかけてやっていく覚悟があると言っていましたが、それは本当に必要だと思いますし、一人一人、たくさんの方々がいるので、一人一人に話をちゃんと聞いてあげて、一人一人に対して向き合って保証だったり、そういうふうに行っていくと言っていましたが、本当にその辺はやっていただきたいですね。
And to add on to this, I believe that this process will be something which will continue for a very long time from now as well. When we look at these different misacts of the university and also, the agency, and also the people involved themselves, when we look at the questions, for example, of how the agency can shift so that it is in or working toward a better direction, also how it can even be reborn, as I mentioned before, this is not something which is going to be easy. As the new president said in the press conference yesterday as well, this is something which he is prepared to spend his whole life dealing with, and I believe that this is something necessary. Of course, there are so many different victims who are involved in this, and each and every person ensuring that they will be talked to one by one on an individual basis, that each of their situations will be dealt with and faced up to directly as well, including, of course, the issue of compensation is something that I sincerely hope will happen from now.
As I understand it, there's two main points of controversy yesterday. One was that Julie Sam would stay on as representative director, but the main point was that the name of the company remains unchanged. A lot of people found that very hard to accept, that the name would permanently be attached to this person who was serially sexually abusing boys. Do you think, you mentioned the word reborn, do you think the company can be reborn with that name?
昨日の会見を受けて2つの、今いろいろと議論を呼んでいるポイントがあるかと思います。一つはそのジュリーさんは社長としては辞任したんだけれども、代表取締役としてはまだその立場を取っているということが一つ。そして名前が変わらないという、ジャニーズという名前で今後も引き続きいるということで、それをなかなか受け入れることが難しいというような声はあります。そのような声を考えますと、やはりその大きな性犯罪を起こした人の本人の名前がついている会社が、先ほどの名前の中で生まれ変わるというお言葉があったんですけれども、その名前が残っている状況、状態で生まれ変わることは本当に可能というふうに思いますでしょうか。
いや、僕は正直そのジャニーズの名前を使い続けることに関してはびっくりしましたね。僕はほぼなんですか、100の可能性で変わると思っていた部分があって、もちろん寂しい部分はありますけど、世間の反応も見ていたんですけど、同意見だなと思う部分がすごくあって、ジャニーズ事務所としての功績や夢を与えて人々を笑顔にした功績は消えることはないですが、このようなふうに全てが出てしまった中で、ジャニーズ事務所としてジャニーズっていう名前を、使い続ける、継続するっていうことは、むしろマイナスなのかなと思いますので、僕も 変わった方が心が一変して会社も一変して、やっていけるのじゃないかなと思います。はい。
Honestly, for me, I was very surprised that they announced that they will continue to be using the name of Johnny and Associates to continue with Johnny's name from now. I thought that it was almost certain, close to 100%, that the name, that they would change the name of the agency. Of course, in a way, might be sad in a sense, and I think we felt the same when we look at the response of the public and sharing that opinion as well. However, of course, looking at the different achievements over the years, the dreams and the smiles which have been brought to people by Johnny and Associates over the years, that is something which will not disappear. But now that all of the facts is now out in the open, the fact that they will continue to use to maintain the name of Johnny's, I think this will rather have a negative impact on the company, actually. I think that it would indeed be better to change the name, to have also the change in the agency going forward so that it can move into a new era instead.
Thank you. The gentleman here in front.
Nishimura freelance. Let me ask in Japanese. 日本語でお伺いします。
はい。
カワンさんのファンに対する考えをお聞きしたいんですが、性加害問題、これ、ビジネスの問題と考えられると思うんですけれども、その当事者はジャニーズ事務所であり、所属のタレントであり、またスポンサー企業であり、我々メディアでもあり、そしてそのビジネスを支えるのがファンではないかと思うんですね。どこかの、ドームでコンサートがあれば全国からファンがそこに行って、楽しみにしてみると、そういう立場から考えてですね、そのファンの方々、今回の問題を見て今後もジャニーズファンを続けていいのかどうかと考えている人も多いんではないかと思います。川野さんは前回の記者会見でファンの方に対してこういった事実があることも考えた上でファンとして応援してほしいという考えを言われてましたけれども、この性加害、事務所が認めたという段階でですね、ファンの方々が応援することがジャニーズ事務所を応援することにもなるわけで、今後どうしたらいいかということについて川野さんの考えをお聞きしたいのと、その逆に事務所は今後ですね、タレントに対しては保証するということですが、ファンに対しては何をすべきだと思いますか。
じゃあ英語にします。To translate the question, this is Mr. Nishimura, freelance. He has a question in regards to Mr. Cullen's thinking regards the fans. Looking at, of course, this is connected to business, and it is the fans who are supporting the business, both of the agency, the sponsor corporations, the media, and so on as well. The fans, of course, looking forward to the concerts and so on. And so looking at what this issue and what has come to light, what the facts are, whether fans can indeed stay fans of Johnny and Associates from now as well. In the previous press conference, Mr. Cowan mentioned that, or his message for the fans was that he hoped that they would stay fans and continue to support, but while recognizing the facts of what happened as well. But now that we are in a situation where this sexual abuse has indeed been acknowledged by the agency, if the fans do continue to support, does that also equal, supporting Johnny, supporting the agency in that way? So what is Mr. Cowan's message, or what is his thinking in regards to how the fans should respond in regards to this? And also to flip the question in the other way as well, to think about the fact that if the agency is providing compensation for the talents who were victimized, what is it that the agency should be doing in regards to the fans?
最初の質問なんですけど、前回僕がこういった事実を、本当にまだ誰も世間の今の特に世間がまだ誰も知らない時に知っていても信じがたい時に、この事実を知った上で分かった上で応援してほしいとファンの方々にも言いましたが、今認められた上でやっぱりもちろんいろんなファンの方々のコメントや、もちろん僕に対してのファンの方々は僕に対しての誹謗中傷とかもあったりするんですけど、僕はそれにすらやっぱり思いを感じますし、それは守りたいですし、タレントだから僕に対して お前がジャニーズ事務所を壊してんだとか、最低だとかたくさん来ますけど、僕はそういう人たちに対して何かこう恨みとかはないですし、たまにカチンときますけどだけど基本的にどんなことを言われてもやっぱりそれはファンなので、それはどこまでもついていくし、自分の好きなタレントにそれは素敵なことだと思いますし、でこれ以上も何か証明することとかはないと僕は思うので、これで皆さんがどういうふうに応援していくかどうかは一人一人が決めることですけど、僕はジャニーズ事務所にさっきの2つ目の質問にもつながるんですけど、どうファンに返していくかっていうのは、ファンに何ができるかっていうのはやっぱりそれこそ生き残ってエンターテインメントで返していく、ジャニー氏なしのエンターテインメントで返していく覚悟がないとダメだと思いますし、それを僕は望んでますね。はい。
In regards to the first question as well, when I previously spoke here, when I gave the press conference at that time, it was when this situation, the facts of this were not known at all, had not been spoken about, and when many people in the public opinion and so on had the response that it was quite difficult to believe many things when I did stand at that time. However, I did, as mentioned, ask the fans then to recognize, acknowledge what had happened, to continue their support as well. And while, of course, now that this situation has indeed been acknowledged, of course, there have been many different responses from fans, many different comments from fans, including some which are support, but some which are of a defamatory nature as well. This is perhaps natural in a way when they want to protect, their favorite talents, when they want to stay on their side. For example, receiving comments saying that I am responsible for destroying Johnny and Associates, telling me that I'm the worst. But I do not hold any kind of hatred in regards to these kind of comments. Well, of course, they can sometimes really get to me and feel very annoying in a way. However, in regards to this, of course, it's up to the fans themselves. They are the fans, and they are the ones to decide how it is that they want to continue to support their favorite talents and so on as well. This is not something for which there is anything more for me to prove and so on. This is something for each of the fans themselves to think about how they will continue to support themselves and the agency. In regards to the second question as to what Johnny & Associates can do for the fans as well, I think what they should be doing there is, first of all, looking at how to survive and then return in a different way to provide this entertainment without Johnny himself. They need to be prepared and able to do so, and I hope that that will be the case.
Thank you. There's a lady here in the front. I saw your hand first, and then it's Teddy at the back, and then this lady here in the second row. お願いします。前の方。はい。
BSTBS 報道1930の赤岩と申します。日本語でお願いいたします。
お願いします。
カウアンさんは4月の会見の時にメディアが報じていれば自分は事務所に入ることはないということをおっしゃいました。メディアにももちろん、すごく大きな問題が今回あったと思っています。でそのメディアが報じる一つのきっかけになったのであろう、週刊文春との裁判がありました。でこの時、メディアと同時に事務所の方の対応もすごく問われたんではないかと思うんですね。その時裁判の結果を事務所の中でどう受け止め、誰とどこまで情報共有がどのようになされたのかというところが特別チームの報告書でも昨日の会見でも広報メディアの担当であった白波瀬氏が会見には出ないなどそこの検証が足りていないのではないかというふうに思っています。でもちろん昨日の会見で被害者の方への補償ということはもちろん具体策はないものの打ち出されましたが、会社が生まれ変わるためにはやはり過去の検証というものも必要だと思うんですね。でそこの、検証をカウアンさんからご覧になってまだ事務所が生まれ変わるためにそこは十分かどうか、まだまだ、文春のこの裁判の時の受け止めにかかわらずどういうふうに足りないのかどうかとか、どういうふうな感じになっているかお聞かせください。
During the April press conference, you mentioned that if the media had already been reporting about the situation, then you likely would not have joined Johnny's and Associates, the agency. So we need to recognize there is, of course, these issues or the problems with the media as well. However, when we look at, for example, when there was an opportunity for this to become more talked about, this was at the time of the lawsuit with Bunsun. When we look at, of course, there is the question of the media, but also the question of how the agency responded at that time as well in regards to what kind of information was disclosed, how this was conveyed, and so on as well. When we look at the results of the special committee, the third-party committee which was set up, or also what was mentioned during the press conference yesterday, for example, the fact that the person responsible for media within Johnny's, Shirahazu, was not speaking, was not present at the press conference yesterday, seems that we need to question whether indeed there has been a sufficient investigation of the facts of what had happened in the past as well. The press conference yesterday did mention about compensation to the victims, despite not being necessarily so concrete, but looking at, in order for the agency to truly be reborn, perhaps a full investigation into the facts of what has happened in the past is necessary. So I'd like to ask Mr. Cowan if you think whether this is sufficient, and if not, what is lacking?
少し難しい質問ですけど、だけど僕なりに思うことなんですけど、今の話を聞いてて、確かにそれ説明ないなとか、過去ね、今後もまた調べていかなきゃいけないなとか、思いますし、僕も先ほどジャニーズ事務所に生き残ってほしい、望んでいるって思う一方で、正直もうまずは最初認める認めないとか、これがどうなるか本当に分からなかった中でここまで認められて、保証していくことだったりとか、社長変わったりとか、行動は出始めた大きな一歩ではあると思うし、ただ今言っている細かいことだったりとか、たくさんあると思います。でそれを本当に真摯になって、どんどんもっと真摯になってほどいていかないと多分生き残れないと思いますね、ジャニーズ事務所は。それはもう思いますし、だからこそそういう意味でも応援してますね。ちゃんとそこは全部してっていう、じゃないと数字が通らないでしょっていうところと、隠してももうしょうがないことはいっぱいあるので、もうだって認められてしまったことで、今後今からこそもう全部認めていって、クリーンにしていかないと。先ほどファンの方々のことも言いましたが、なんでしょうね、全部失っても事務所はファンを失わないので、何度でも立ち上がれるので、そこは怖がらずにやってほしいですね。
So that is a little bit of a difficult question, but I'll share some of my thoughts as regards to this. As I was listening to, as you're saying, it made me realize, yes, well, there is indeed not a full explanation about many things, and there is a lot more things, including what happened in the past, which need to be looked into even further. While I do want Johnny and Associates to survive, at the same time, honestly, when I look at it was before so uncertain whether they would even, as the first step, acknowledge what happened or not. So the fact that they have come as far as acknowledging what happened, saying that they will provide some kind of compensation, and announcing the change in the presidency of the company as well, I believe that these are the first steps towards action. So these are very important that these have been made. However, there are many different detailed points, as were mentioned now, which are still remain. And so I hope that they will even more sincerely face up to these and look at how to step forward and untangle all of these different issues which are still remaining. If they're not able to do this as well, I don't think that Johnny and Associates will indeed survive. And of course, this is why indeed I support them in going forward and taking this. If they do not take these kind of steps, then I don't think that this is something which will be accepted. The facts cannot just be hidden now that it has already been come to light. Therefore, need to look at how to recognize everything that has happened to date and create a new clean slate. As I was mentioning when I spoke about the fans before as well, even if Johnny as a company loses everything, the fans will still be there. So I do believe that it is possible.
Thank you. Teddy, next, please. There's a lot of hands up, so can I ask, please, that you only ask one question and that you keep your questions short? 私たちはジョニーズみたいに余裕がないから4時間の記者会見やるわけないです。
うまいね。Terry Jimbo, the video news, and I also co-chair the committee that organized this press conference today. ビデオニュースの神保と言います。ここの今日の会見を主催している委員会の委員長をやっています。川野さんどうもありがとうございます。
ありがとうございます。
どうしても聞きたいのはBBC がドキュメンタリーを放送しても基本的に日本のメディアはまだ沈黙を続けてたんですね。無視したんです。しかしカウアンさんがここに来て顔出しして記者会見をやったらようやく報道が始まった。最初は動きが悪いところもありましたけど始まった。そして今ここに来てですね、もう記者会見も行われてあのように中継もされ、メディアはどこも報じているわけです、この問題を。カウアンさんから見て、ある種言い出しっぺの唇を切ったカウアンさんから見て、そのメディアの変化というのはどういうふうに見てますか。つまりようやく十分に反省して報じているのか、もう報じざるを得なくなってもうしょうがなしに報じているけど、ご都合主義的なものなので、そのうちまた、どうせやめるだろうっていうようなレベルのものだと見ているのかが一つ。それがどうしてもこれだけ聞かせてください。その告発によってカウアンさんの人生というものがどう変わったのか、それはエンターテイナーとしてでも個人としてでもそうなんですが、どのような変化が生じ、また昨日の会見、ジャニーズの会見によって一段落だというふうにおっしゃっているけど、それは同じ質問で川さんにとってこれから進んでいく上でどのような意味を持ち、どのような変化をもたらすものになるのか、すみませんがその2点お願いします。
Two questions. First of all, looking at the situation in Japan, where even when the BBC documentary was released, the Japanese media remained silent and largely ignored the issue. However, it was only by you, Cowan, coming here, showing your face and holding a press conference that they finally started to report about this, albeit with somewhat slow moves in regards to this. Now we see the situation where you have another press conference, there is great attention, and all of the media is reporting about this. As the first person to come and speak out publicly about this, how do you observe this change in the media during this time? And also looking at, do you think that this will continue? Do you think that this is really a change and that the media is looking honestly or regretting in regards to how it has been in the past? Or do you think that they are reporting just because they cannot avoid it, that they have to, and they will eventually become quiet on this issue again? And the second question, looking at, through your speaking out about this, would like to ask how this has changed your life since then, whether on the level as an entertainer or on a personal level as well. And the same question in regards to yesterday's press conference. You said that this is, in some sense, putting a full stop on one period in regards to this. But what kind of either significance or change do you find from the press conference yesterday?
はい。すごいシビアな質問をしていただいてありがとうございます。メディアに関してですね、もうここに立つまではほとんど日本のメディアとは関わることはなかったですし、ここに立ってからね、外国特派員委員会協会でやってから今おっしゃったようにメディアがどんどん取り上げるようになって、いろんな方々と出会いました。今日も何時間も僕の話を聞いていただいた、個別に話を聞いていただいた記者さんが何人もいらっしゃってます。僕は本当に一つのメディアというくくりもそうですけど、一人一人の人間っていうのがいて、もちろん明らかにいやいややってるなっていう人もいますし、僕のことを本当に親身に聞いていただいている、方々もたくさんいます。で、メディア全体に関してもそうですけど、仕方なく最初はやったじゃないですか。それはもうみんな知ってることです。なのでもうでもそれは認められる前であったので、仕方ないところもあると思いますし、そう簡単なことではないと思いますが、こう認められた以上、メディアも一新して反省して変わっていってほしいなっていう思いはあります。そして世間は多分ほっとかないのでちゃんとやっていただきたいなと思います。そして、はい。
So thank you for a very severe question. First of all, in regards to the media, of course, until I stood here and gave the press conference, I did not really have any engagement or any sort of direct experience with the Japanese media. But since then, since speaking at the FCCJ, of course, as you said, the media has been reporting about this a great amount, and there has been a lot of attention, a lot of media questions, and so on, and looking at how they are. For example, even today there were reporters who really, I was on the phone with, they listened to me for hours even at a time as well. Within the media, of course, I don't want to speak of them as just one group which is all the same. Each and every individual is different within the media. There are some, of course, who clearly are quite reluctant to be working about this. There are others who are very sincerely listening to me and hearing me really when I'm talking as well. I think when the media was first talking about this, it was partly because they couldn't avoid it. Of course, this is something which you all know. However, that was before Johnny's had recognized, had acknowledged what had happened. Now that this has actually been acknowledged as well, I hope that this will be a chance or a time that the media itself will change, will really look at regretting as to what has happened until now and have this change for the better. And I think that public opinion will also follow along with that.
そして2つ目の、質問に関してなんですけど、僕の人生何が変わったかっていう質問なんですけど、さっきのメディアの1個目の質問にもつながるんですけど、さっきいろんな人がいると、人生でいろんな人がいると僕は言ったんですけど、記者の方々もいろんな人がいますし、僕の周りにも出会ってきた人たちにもいろんな人がいます。で、僕はそこは人生で何を大事にしているかだと思うんですよね。で、それが明らかに出るんですよね、人と関わってると。で、今回のことで本当によりそれがはっきりしたというか、やっぱり物質的な表面的な、記録だったりとか、その名声だったり、お金だったり、そういうものだけ、それをメインとして追ってる人たちっていうのはやっぱり僕の言ってることは多分理解できないですね。だけど僕のさっきの記者さんの人々だったりとかも僕の話を聞いて明らかに情熱を持って愛を持って本当に自分の家族がその身になった時に本当に辛いんだと、本当に守りたいんだと、自分もこういう日本を変えたいんだと、思う人々がたくさんいたので、僕はそういう方々を大事にしていきたいし、それは仕事で関わる人でもプライベートで関わる人も大事にしていきたいっていう、てかそういう人たちとしか関わりたくないぐらいまでもう僕は思った出来事だったし、でそういう人たちはいるので生きる希望になりますし、あと、やっぱりこの場を借りてやっぱ僕のこのことで一番じゃあ誰が辛いかって言ったら僕のお母さんですよね。お母さんがどんな思いでこの僕のこの出来事を聞いて日々生きているかとか、そういう気持ちも普段思うことだっていっぱいあるし、僕はいいんだけどまだやっぱお母さんにやっぱなかなか言えなかったこといっぱいあるし、そういうすいません、そういう思いには二度とさせたくないなっていう。で、お母さんもすごいいろいろ誹謗中傷を浴びたりとか、お前の息子が嘘つきだとか、金だけ欲しいだろうとか、売名だろうとか言われて続けて、今でも多分言われてますし、でも応援する人も多いですけど、だから簡単な問題じゃないですね。だから僕は今回も前に進みたいっていうのもそういうことにこれ以上家族とか自分の気持ちを置きたくないし、大きな一歩で認められて、そして僕もこの場を借りていたのはやっぱり取材でも言ってますけど、こういうことが本当にあるんだと、誰が想像して誰が確信してたか、一番夢を与えたジャニーズ事務所が裏ではそういうことがあったって みんなが多分衝撃だったと思うし、15歳の僕もそれをやられた瞬間もう信じられなかったです。何を信じて俺が夢をかけていけばいいかって、ステージに立てばいいかって本当に悩んだ時期がたくさんあったし、この会見も最初やるときも僕を支えてくれた、さっき言った愛のある家族だったり友達だったり、こういう時に出るんですよね。やっぱ誰がそばにいるかとか。だから簡単なので、最初のうまく今こうやって認められてからお前すげえじゃんとかよかったじゃんって言うのは簡単ですよ。でも最初から誰も信じてない時に誰がそばにいたかって、それが全てなんで、なんか僕の人生で学んだことはそれですね。そして僕はもうさっきエンターテインメントとか自分のキャリアっていう面でも、僕も正直ジャニーズ事務所辞めてずっと日本で活動できなかったです。こんなにはっきり言ったことないですけど、正直もうはっきり最初濁されてたんですけど、はっきり言われたこともいっぱいあります。もうジャニーズコンプライアンスで無理ですとか。それはジャニーズが何か圧力をかけてるとは別として、やっぱりそういう日本のミーハーっていうか、なんかすげえからなんか頭下げようぜみたいな、なんとなく自分の上司が好きだから自分も好きでいなきゃいけないとか、そういうのはもう通用しないんで、もうやっぱり時代も変わってきてるんで、やっぱり自分の意思を持って自分が本当に大事にしたいものは何かって考えてほしいですね。僕はそれを音楽で伝えていきたいし、背中で見せていきたいし、今回のことで本当にたくさんのコメント、今まで僕がアーティスト活動していて表に立っててジャニーズにいた時もこんなに熱いコメントはなかったので、それはなんかかっこいいとかそういうのじゃなくて、本当に人生を変えてくれたというか、勇気をもらえたっていうコメントはたくさんあるので、本当に後悔はないですし、これでも向き合って、なのでここからは僕はアーティストとして曲だったりステージだったり、もちろんこれは消えることはないので MC で話すこともあるかもしれません、音楽やってて。でもそれが人生なんで、最後死ぬ時は一人なんで、なので自分に対していい愛を感動を届けていきたいなと、皆さんに届けていきたいなと思います。はい。めちゃくちゃ長くてすみません。お願いします。
As for the second question as to what has changed in my life since then, this is somewhat related or connected to the first question about the media as well. And I mentioned there's, of course, many different kinds of people, the same thing with reporters, with journalists, but also with the other people who I come across in everyday life as well. And what this has really come clear through this experience and through interacting with different kinds of people is what I truly value. And this is when it comes to who it is that will truly stand by you, not just in a sense of something material or superficial. When we compare, for example, for people who are pursuing these kind of things or money as their priority, they perhaps cannot understand the words that I am saying. But the same thing with journalists as well. Some people, depending on what they hold of value, the way that they listen to me with sincerity and with love, thinking about if someone in their own family was to go through the same thing, to suffer in the same way, how they would want to protect them as well, and they want change in that regards. There are so many people who do indeed listen as journalists to them. These are the kinds of people who both in my work and also in my personal life want to continue to value. Not only value, but actually these are really the only people that I want to keep having anything to do with as well. And these kinds of people are out there. They are around us, and so I hope to live in that way as well. But when I think about this entire situation, the person who is indeed suffering the most is my mother. When she had to hear what happened to me, she has to live through every day since then as well. There are, of course, many different things, many thoughts, many things that she is having to experience even now in an ongoing way as well. It might be all right for me personally, but there are many things which I feel I cannot even say to her, to my mother, even at this time as well. And I just do not want her to ever have to go through such a thing ever again. Of course, there have also been many negative words, comments directed towards my mother, including of a defamatory nature as well, saying your son is a liar, your son is just promoting or trying to sell himself. These are things which are continuing even now as well. But there are also, of course, many supporters too. However, this is not just something which is simple. When I stated that from now I want to go forward as well, this is something also because not just for me personally, but for my family as well. I want them to be able to move forward and not continue this as well. This is something which when I'm standing here, also as I say in interviews as well, when we look at the situation of even when, Johnny and Associates as this agency, this existence which provides the biggest dreams to so many people, the fact that this is what was happening behind the scenes. This is something which even for myself as a 15-year-old at the time when this was happening to me, I couldn't even really believe that this was happening to me. I didn't know who to believe at that time. I didn't know where I should be putting my dreams, what I should be believing or what I should be thinking about when I was standing there on the stage performing as well. However, it is the people who have been supporting me, whether at the time when I gave the previous press conference, both family and also friends. It is these kinds of time when it really comes out clear who it is that is truly standing by you. Of course, now that Johnny's has acknowledged what happened, it might be easy to say, oh, you're amazing, or it's good that now we're moving forward in this way. But who was it who was really standing by even at the time when they were still denying this, when the facts were not acknowledged as well? Actually, this is something which I haven't said until now, but after leaving Johnny's and Associates, I couldn't actually, within my career, continue to be active or to perform here in Japan. This is when there are words about Johnny and Associates compliance, for example. It wasn't necessarily direct pressure from the company as such, but looking at within the situation and really the atmosphere that we have here in Japan in regards to this kind of social pressure when your superiors say certain things, you need to follow them, you think you need to stick within this certain way of doing things. However, that doesn't pass anymore. Today we are in a different period. The times have changed. And when we look at what it is that we hold to value, what we hold important, for me, it is to be able to continue to convey this through music and to show through my actions as well. So while there may be many different comments which continue as an artist, actually comparing the amount of comments which I received today, it's many more than even at the time when I was active as a Johnny's Junior as well. These are not just things saying, oh, you're so cool, but they're things saying really deep things like you've changed my life or you've really given me courage as well. Therefore, I do not have any regrets, and I want to continue this both as an artist through my songs and through my performance as well. Of course, what has happened is not something which will ever disappear. I will still need to be talking about this, whether it's in TV programs and MC and so on, but that is life. But in order to move forward, in order to be able to love myself and to continue to move people as well, this is how I hope to proceed from now.
Thank you, Kawan-san, and thank you, Murray, for that amazing bit of interpreting. Kawan-san, apparently we have permission to extend, is that right? Okay, well, I noticed some questions over here. Was there a lady over here with a question? You had a question, is that right? Yeah, and I see the gentleman at the back, and I see the lady over there, and I see the lady in the front, and I think that's probably going to be it. So the lady at the back there, if you don't mind.
時事通信の岡田です。日本語で質問させていただきます。
はい。
東山紀之さんが次期社長になることについて、古い時代のジャニーズの先輩、尊敬できる先輩だからちょっとその性加害を受けた事務所で尊敬できる先輩がトップに立ってしまうということで少し複雑だという意見とかが出ていると思うんですけれども、それについてカウアンさんがどうお考えなのかということが一つと、あとはジュリー藤島さんが、株式をいまだに 100% 保有していて、関連会社の10社でも取締役をこれからも務めるということで、このままではいかに透明性をこれから持っていこうと言っているとはいえ体制が変わらないのではないかという批判の意見もあると思うんですけれども、それについてのご意見も伺えればと思います。
My name is Okada of Jiji. I have two questions. First of all, the new president appointed yesterday, Mr. Higashiyama, is of course someone from the old period of Johnny's and Associates, someone who can respect maybe as a senpai, but at the same time, perhaps there are rather complicated feelings or opinions, as he is, of course, someone who represents this period of the agency as well. So your personal opinion on that. And the second, while Julie Fujishima is no longer president, she continues to hold 100% of the shares of the company and plays executive role in other related in subsidiary as well. So while the company is maybe talking about transparency, there are criticisms as to whether there is real change in its management structure. So your thoughts on this?
まあ、新社長、難しい質問ですね。でもどう思うか。いや、誰も社長をやりたい人いないですよね、多分今。なので、誰もやれない中で、勇気を持って、東山さんが出られたのかなと思いますので、彼もタレントですし、タレントに罪はないと思っているので、そこはリスペクトを持って応援したいですし、ただ一方でじゃあ経営者として本当に、能力があるのかどうかとか、その辺は問われてきますし、彼も自分自身で言っていましたが、本当に右も左もまだ分からないけど、もうやっていきながらもうやっていくしかないと言っていました。苦肉の策ではあると思うんですけど、今後社長ってまた変わったりだとか、会社名変わったりだとか、いろんなことは今後も変わっていってもいいと思いますし、それはそこはもう最優先はタレントたちだと思うので、今いるタレントたち、事務所からしたらと被害者の方々だと思うので、誰が社長に立とうと、そこはプライドとか、抜きに、そういう忖度とかもうかかって企業とかもそう、株も含めてですけど、プライドは捨てて、本当に何が一番みんなにとっていい方向に行くかを考えながら決めていってほしいですね。はい。
So that's rather a difficult question, but what I think in regards to this, of course, in the current situation, there is nobody who would want to become president. So within that, I think that Mr. Higashiyama was indeed brave to, stand up and take on this position. He himself is also a talent, a performer, not to blame in this situation. So in that regards, I also have respect and want to support him for that as well. Of course, his capacity, his skill as a manager is something which is yet to be seen from now, and that is something which he himself said as well. He still has a lot to learn, and he will be doing that as he's going forward as well. But within this extremely difficult situation, I think that was perhaps, a brave decision. When we go forward from here as well, I think that we may see also even further changes in the presidency of the company, maybe a change in the company name. There are many other things which I think could, and it would be good if they do change from now as well. But what should be the priority there is both the talents and also, or the current talents and also the victims, of course, there as well. So no matter who is in the position of president, they really need to be able to, give up, throw away their pride, throw away sontaku, looking at just trying to, make decisions based on what they expect people want them to do, and think about what is indeed best to make a better direction for all as it goes forward.
Thank you. I saw the gentleman's hand here at the back, and I saw this lady's hand here. And Kaneko-san, you have a question? Are you both the same, or no? Okay. Well, let's see if we can just have this gentleman first, and then we'll have to make a decision on time, I think.
日刊スポーツ村上です。よろしくお願いします。
お願いします。
今の質問にちょっとつながるような話なんですけども、川原さん、今日の会見の中で冒頭でやっぱりグルーミングと言われてもジャニーさんへの思いっていうのはね変わらないっていうようなあとエンターテインメントを教えていただいてって話をされたと思うんですけども、一方で東山新社長は昨日の会見の中で鬼畜の所業であるというふうに発言されたりですね、あとやっぱりもう愛はないから、北川氏と呼んでるみたいな発言もされました。一方、井ノ原さんも会見の中で何をしてくれたんだって怒りもにじませました。でもいずれジャニーさんのいたときに育った方が今トップになる。 果たしてそれでジャニーズ事務所は変われると、川さん、お考えでしょうか。あと風通しも良くないとか、そういう発言も、それが一つ問題だったということが主張されてるんですけれども、川さん自体いらっしゃったときは、そういうものを感じたり、先輩たちにものを言えなかったのか、こともですね、あとやっぱりジャニーさんへの思い、変わらない、でも2人はやっぱりちょっと怒りを示せ、その辺の温度差みたいなものをすごく今日の会見で感じ、そのあたりのお気持ちもお聞かせください。よろしくお願いします。
My name is Murakami of Nikkan Sports. It's a bit linked to the previous question, but in the press conference, you mentioned that even if what happened is called grooming, your feelings or respect in regards to towards Johnny himself is not something which changed. When we look at the statements which were made in the Johnny's press conference yesterday, both by the new president and also by Mr. Inohara as well, we look at questioning in regards to whether people who were from that period when Johnny was at the top of the company, can it really change as it's going forward? There are also comments in regards to it not being a very open atmosphere within the agency and able to speak out. And I'd like to ask if during your time at Johnny's as well, if you felt that it was not able to speak out to your senpai and so on during that time. So your feelings in regards to this.
まず最初の質問で感謝があるだとか、そのグルーミングと思われたくないとか、そういう発言を僕はしたんですけど、で東山さんだったりとか井ノ原さんのはもう逆のことをおっしゃっていたということなんですけど、僕もスピーチで言わせていただいたんですけど、感謝は感謝としてもちろんあります。それはやっていただいたことだったりとか、自分ができた経験だったり、それはジャニー氏という人間も関わっていた彼が作り上げたものの中で、僕が人生にとってすごい大事なものもたくさん得られたので、たくさんの人と出会いもありました。それは本当に僕にとって大きなことで、それは消えないことですし、そして僕が、ただそれはじゃあだからといってじゃあもし彼がここ生きていて、じゃあ会うことなんてあったら、それはじゃあ仲良くしようぜとはならないですよね。そうだから僕は許すっていうのは受け入れる方ではなくて、施すの方、施すと書いて許すと言ったんですけど、それは自分が憎しみを持ったり恨みを持ってジャニー氏に対して何かをしたい、もし生きていたとしても多分しないと思うんですよね。僕はそれは僕の人生にとっては無意味なことなので、それよりも真実を知ったりだとか、本当にこういうことは繰り返されない、僕や他の被害者の方々含めて、そういう経験がせめて無駄とならないように子どもたちに示したりだとか、社会に示すことによって示すことが意味があると思うので、彼に何か復讐をしたり、彼に何かをやらないためにも僕は感謝をしっかり持って、そして施すで許すところは許して進みたいと思うっていう意味で僕は言っています。はい。
And so as to the first question, as to still having some kind of gratitude or not wanting to be thought of what happened as grooming, and looking at perhaps how the statements that I've been saying are somewhat in opposition to what Mr. Higashiyama or Inohara said at the press conference yesterday. As I said, I do still hold a kind of gratitude, including towards Johnny himself as well, because the experience which I had through the company, through the world that he built up, is something which gave me many precious things in my life from there as well, including people. So therefore, these are things which have had a great impact on me, which are not going to disappear as well. So in that sense, indeed, I do still have this gratitude. However, as to if he was still alive today and if I were to meet him, would I want to get along with him? No, that's not the case. When I said before that when I look at the kind of forgiveness which I am seeking, this is not forgiveness of just accepting what happened, but looking at how to have a kind of pardoning through this. This is the kind of thing I was referring to. whether I myself, even if he were still alive, would have a kind of hatred towards Johnny himself or want him to do something for me. That is not necessarily the case, because I don't think that that would have any kind of meaning for me as well. Rather than that, looking at how to ensure that the truth is out and how to ensure that this kind of things are prevented from happening again, both for me and for the other victims as well, to ensure that what we went through does not go to waste, and ensure that how we can show this to the children and to the broader society as well. So therefore, in that sense, do I harbor any kind of feelings of revenge and so on towards Johnny? That is not the case. I do still harbor this kind of gratitude, but I'm looking at how I can indeed find some kind of way to pardon and move forward.
2つ目の質問がありましたね。風通しの話ですよね。あと今いるメンバー方々、タレントとしてそのジャニーズで育った人たちが、本当に変われるのかどうか、事務所ってことですよね。僕の時結構取材でもちょくちょく言ってるんですけど、本当に、2012年とかなんで僕が入ったの12年前とかなんですけど、僕はこの問題でジャニーズ事務所が性加害だけじゃなくて、今後仕組みだったりとか、ジャニーズジュニアの育て方だったりとか、契約の仕方だったりとか、親御さんとちゃんと会ったりとか、僕の時は本当に契約もしたことなかったので、よく有名な話じゃないですか。ジャニーさんに呼ばれてて、いきなり気づいたらデビューの時にデビューしてるみたいな、デビューする時に初めて契約するって、本当にそうで、ずっとなくて、ライブごとにライブの契約書とかはあったんですけど、同意書とかで、お母さんも会ったことないんで、誰とも事務所の人と誰とも会ったことなかったんで、それ結構そういう人多かったとこだったりとか、本当に話しがいなところもあったので、本当に先輩から学ぶとか、先輩が絶対とかっていう部分があったので、結構僕自身本当に大変な思いはしたんですけど、衣装が消えたりとか、いろんなことがあったんですけど、靴がなくなったりとか、それによって出とちったら振付師にめちゃ怒鳴られるとかで蹴られるとかいろいろあったんですけど、だからそういう体制とか、そういういじめや暴力だったりとか、そういう体制とか本当にいろいろ特殊すぎていろいろあったので、そういうもんかなと思ってたんですけど、今ではジャニーさんが亡くなる前から、まだ生きていた時にも結構契約ができたり契約するようになったりとか、振付師が変わったりとか、いろいろと変えてたらしいんですけど、僕が辞めてからも。なので風通しがいいかって言ったらめちゃくちゃ悪いと思います。はい、なのでそれは変わってたらすごくいいのかなと思いますし、今後もっともっと井ノ原さんもおっしゃってましたけど、今の子供たちの顔を見て見ると圧力かけないようにとか、彼らの本当実力が実るような体制を作っていきたいとおっしゃってましたが、本当にそうなってほしいと思います。はい。
And as for the second question about the atmosphere, whether it was an open enough atmosphere that could speak about things at the agency, well, during my period at Johnny & Associates, as I mentioned, I entered in 2012, so this is close to 12 years ago. This is an issue not only about the sexual abuse, but also about the very structures itself, about how the juniors were raised or trained, about what kind of contracts were or weren't in place, about whether they met with parents and so on or not. For me, for example, I didn't have any kind of contract actually before I debuted. This is something which people often talk about as the dream. You get a call from Johnny, you go up, and then all of a sudden you notice that one day you've already made your debut, and this is when you get the contract. This was the situation which I had as well. Of course, for each live performance, there was a particular, form of consent or some kind of document similar to this. But as to whether, for example, my mother had met the agency or whether they'd visited and so on, that didn't happen at all. And I think that was the same for most people as well. So this created the kind of situation where you have to, learn from your senpai, learn from the older talents, and their words are everything. That goes for everything, which led to a lot of things where I did very much suffer as well. There were times when maybe my clothes or shoes disappeared all of a sudden one day. Times when you would be kicked by the choreographer. These kind of structures which were in place, including also bullying and violence, was something which was too much of a peculiar or a very particular situation that at the time I thought, well, that's just how it is. That's what the situation was. During the period just before, or the period shortly before Johnny passed away, this was when there did start to be certain changes where contracts were being put in place. There was a change in choreographer, the personnel there as well, for example, and things did start to see some kind of improvements. But as to what the situation was like when I was there in regards to that, it was really terrible, that atmosphere. And so the fact that that was starting to change is something which I think is very good. And as Mr. Inohara mentioned as well, and what I hope from now as well, when he looks at the faces of the children, thinking about how to make sure not to pressure them, how to look at how to fulfill their potential in a more positive way. I hope that that is the direction that they will go from here.
Thank you. And this will be the last question. The lady who's been waiting for a long time. Yeah, if you could make it one question. 一つの質問しか。いや、一つお願いします。本当に時間厳しいからお願いします。
共同通信の前山です。今日はありがとうございます。
はい。
お伺いしたいのが、カーワンさんが告発されてジャニーズ事務所の扉が開いたっていうのは一つあると思うんですけれど、それと同時に社会の中で男性の性被害というものがあるということも同時に、知られる機会になったと思うんですけれど、とはいえまだ言い出しにくいっていう状況っていうのは、変わらないところもあるのかなと思うんですが、その点について何かお考えとか見解があれば教えてください。
My name is Mayama of Kyoto. You mentioned that when you spoke out about what happened to you, that did in a way open the door to Johnny and Associates. But at the same time, I think it also had an impact looking at how society sees the issue of sexual abuse against men as well. Of course, I think we still have a situation here where it is very difficult for people to speak out about this, but I wonder if you have a comment on this issue.
はい、今質問いただいた性被害が明らかとなって男性でもそういうことがあると。で僕は以前にも国会のヒアリングだったりとかに参加したりしてるんですけど、僕はその部分も今国会閉じちゃったんですけど、法改正のチャンスは一回閉じちゃってまた開くと思うんですけど、その時に児童虐待防止法の改正がまだ進んでるんですけど、チャレンジ、橋田さんをはじめチャレンジしていくと思うんですけど、僕も、そこはいけたら行きたいなと思う部分があるんですけど、僕はそのヒアリングでも言ったんですけど、本当にそういうことがいっぱいあって、でテレビとかで見てても予想はしてたんですけど、僕がそういう経験があったから。だけどこういうことを僕が発表してからものすごい量の DM 来るんですよ。でそれはさっき言った、誹謗中傷もあれば応援もあれば、その中にしかも自分の性被害を打ち明ける人がたくさんいて、じゃあ先生にやられたとか親にやられたとか友達にやられたとか子供同士でそういうことがあったとか、もう本当にいろんなことがあってずっとトラウマだったりとかっていう人が本当にとてつもない長文で送られてくるんですけど、そういう人たちに勇気もらえたとかっていうのは本当に嬉しいことですし、今の話で法改正だからそのためにもそういう僕はヒアリングで法改正に関しては、やりたいと思うんですけど、中には弁護士とか、国会の政治家の方々とヒアリングで話していてもやっぱり今の法律で十分じゃないかっていう声の方が多くて、でそれは確かに話してて、納得する部分もあるんですけど、であちらからできればじゃあ法以外でも、それはやっていった方がいいんじゃないかと、それは何かないかと話をしているときに、ダイヤルがあるじゃないかと、相談窓口っていう、いやそれは僕見たんですけど、なかなか子供が相談しづらいような内容だったりとか、もうすごいもうゴリゴリ漢字の 感じでなんか市役所みたいなダイヤルなんですけど、誰が電話するのそこにみたいなところで、電話した後誰が何をしてくれるのって、保証は何がされるの、じゃあ僕が15歳の時にそこに電話したら誰が守ってくれるのっていう話なんですけど、そういうのがあるので、まずはそれダイヤルももっとこう子供が電話しやすいようなとかもう漫画帳でもいいんですけど変えたりとか、あとはその僕がすごい言ったのが薬物ダメ絶対っていうのがあって、で薬物ダメ絶対っていうのが小学校の時に僕ら習ったんですけど、友達からこう飴玉をもらって、これ可愛い絵だけどピンクの、飴玉で先輩が目の前で食べてもこれはこう薬物だったりするんだよ、でこれは後遺症がこんなのがあって、で実は違法でこんだけ捕まるし後遺症もこのぐらい残るよって、で断り方もこうだよとかっていうのが、で相談はここだよみたいなっていうのがもうキャラクターがいて漫画帳で説明していたので、僕はそれを思い出してヒアリングの時にその場で性加害ダメ絶対をじゃあ作ったらいいじゃないですかみたいな、でそれは子供に教育していくってことですよね。結局子供が自分の身を自分で守らないと、僕はその薬物のことがあったので本当にその時見て、いやそれは騙されるわみたいな、先輩に渡されたら食べちゃうよねっていうところがあって、それは性加害もアメリカの方では実は教えてるところもあって、ここをじゃあ触ったらレッドゾーンだよみたいな場所があったりするんですよね。で子供わからないじゃないですか。僕も15歳ですらこうびっくりした、もう衝撃的だったんですけど、それを子供がなんかもっと小学生の時とかで大人にされてもわからない、で大人になってあれは違う、あれは恥ずかしい、あれはもうトラウマなんだっていうことになるので、自分の身を自分で守れるように、そういう性加害の、ダメ絶対とかを教育に取り入れていく行動だったり、それを法改正もできれば確かにその今の法律で十分かもしれないけど、やっぱり国レベルでそれ許さないよと、こんだけ社会問題になってるんで国レベルでのこうアクションでそれが皆さんが見るので、ちゃんとそれをこう注目されて、広告じゃないですか、ちゃんと国としてこうやりますよっていうレベルになるので、それは大事なことなんじゃないか、それ両方やることに意味があるんじゃないかっていうことを言わせていただいたので、はい、僕はそういうふうに行動してます。はい。
And in regards to your question, I think about when I spoke at the Diet hearing about the issue of the legislation and so on against abuse against children as well. And I think at the time, well, now when there is a discussion or a chance at the Diet, there is a chance for people to hear from those concerned who are impacted by this as well. When I see people like Mr. Hashida, for example, speaking up, I hope to encourage and I hope these voices of victims to stand out and share this kind of impact, and I hope to be able to contribute this as well. But at the same time, I would say when, for example, looking at this situation and the many cases which occur of this, whether you're watching TV or one thing which has happened since I spoke out and announced what happened, I'm receiving so many direct messages on social media. Of course, within those, there are some which are defamatory, there are some which are messages of support, but there is also a huge number of people coming out and saying that they have been through similar things themselves, saying what they have experienced, the abuse at the hands of whether it is a teacher, a parent, siblings, or even other children, how traumatizing it is for them even now, receiving these really huge, very long messages in direct mail as well. So I'm very glad, of course, for their courage, which gives to me as well. And in regards to that, as I said in the hearing, legal reform or looking at how to have some kind of improvements on the current legislation in regards to this is important. But within the discussion with whether it's lawyers or politicians and so on in regards to this, I also wonder about if there are methods other than just through legislation as well. There are, of course, telephone counseling services called dial services, which have, hotlines for children to be able to call up. And I looked at what is available for them, but I think they're very difficult maybe for children to access. They might be all written in kanji and Chinese characters. They might look like some very official documents from the city hall, something which is maybe not easy for a child to pick up the phone and call. But then there's also questions about if they do make that call, who is it that they talk to and what happens after that? What are they going to do for them? If I had made that call myself as a 15-year-old, would something have been done for me? How would I have been helped or protected? So I think one aspect is making these kind of telephone services easier and more accessible for children to use, whether it's making them in manga, for example. And when I was speaking at the hearing, what I was reminded of is the No Drugs campaign, which I saw and which was part of our official education within the schooling here in Japan as well. This is when it had these characters who were showing you're being given, a pink candy from one of your senpai, and they're fooling you into taking this, but what kind of long-term impacts that have, what kind of criminal circumstances or implications that might have. And this was all being done using characters or manga, which is something which really stays with children. You can remember that in a sense as well, which makes you think what kind of campaigns, for example, could we have for children to learn how to protect themselves. I understand that in parts of the United States there is, for example, education or teaching about children saying, this part of your body is the red zone. This is not where other people should be touching, and this kind of thing as well. But I think for many children, they are not aware of this. For me, myself, even at 15, it was something which was so, shocking and difficult for me at the time. So when I think about if it was a elementary school age student, and if an adult is doing something like this, of course, you don't know what's happening, or you believe what they're telling you, and so on as well. So I think some kind of education for children to be able to learn how to protect themselves, as is done in the anti-drugs campaign, is something. Of course, legal reform is one point, but I think that should be done together in parallel with this kind of national level public or education campaign, as it has become such a social issue now as well, to ensure that it is not permitted and that this is understood or educated. I think these two together will have meaning.
Thank you. We're finished, but Kawan-san wants to make a final statement. Is that right? 最後の言葉。
皆さん、今日は本日集まりいただき本当にありがとうございました。最後に一言だけ言いたいんですけど、どうかね、皆さんも、人生本当にいろんなことがあるので、一人で抱え込まないで、自分に嘘をつかないで、大切にしてくれる人たちや愛してくれる人たちと一緒にそういう場所に身を置いてほしいなと思います。愛がすべてなので、Love is everything なので、どうかお願いします。
Thank you, everyone, for coming today. And some final words that I would like to share. Of course, throughout your life, many things will happen. You will experience many different things. But I would really like to appeal to everybody, not just to hold this within yourself, not to try and lie to yourself, but to find the people who value you, find the people who love you, and find a place that you can be together with them. Love is everything.
Well, what a nice way to end. Thank you so much again for coming to the FCCJ with a statement which was erudite and moving and honest, and then again, responding so well to questions which are very difficult to deal with. So I think everybody in the room admires Okamoto-san for what he did, coming forward like he did. I think it makes him not just a remarkable figure, but a historical figure. I think he's a historical figure at this point because of his role in lifting the lid on this scandal. Do show your appreciation, please. Thank you very much.